What's up, guys? We are doing something a little bit different today, taking a look at an action figure, obviously. So we've got a big gray action figure here, but this is something a little special, something a little different, and we're not doing a real review. This is more of a preview, more of a, hey, I want to talk about something kind of thing. So this is a test shot from the upcoming Mythic Legions Siege at Bjorngar for the Bolthor the Tower figure. So this is one of the new 9-ish inch figures in their ogre scale. So not your normal figures in Legions, but not as big as a troll. They're still quite small compared to trolls. Just about everything is. But this guy is definitely something a little different. He is 100% new parts as far as anything I've ever seen before. I did get a chance to look at some of this stuff at PowerCon, but actually having one that I can kind of put through the ringer is a whole different story. We're not really going to nitpick the hell out of this thing because it's not a finished product. That would be unfair. But, I mean, come on, just look at it. It's pretty amazing looking. And it might as well be a finished product without the paint, really, because it basically is that. So we're just going to talk about it and kind of run through what this guy is, what he comes with, and how he moves, because he might move a little better than you would expect. He's still pretty standard for Mythic Legion stuff, but I've been able to pose him really well. And this guy moves exactly like I expect a finished product to move, so it's kind of cool. So let's just run through articulation real quick. He is, again, very, very similar to Mythic Legions, especially if you're used to any of the bare-chested style figures, very similar in that regard. So you've got a head that can look up a little bit, and he goes down really well. You got bobble side to side, so give him a little attitude, and then rotate all the way around. You've got the horns that are removable, but also do rotate, as I'm sure you're aware. Arms go out at the shoulder, and they are ratcheted too, so that's really, really, really nice. They rotate all the way around. Nothing at the bicep, of course, but we do have a rotating elbow with a single jointed hinge. And this guy moves pretty well. It's actually one that has kind of like an elbow cap on the backside, so you can kind of cover that joint when it's not in use, which actually is just nice from an aesthetic perspective. You've got hinges and rotation at the wrist. He's got a ball peg at the waist, and it's a deep peg, and I've taken him apart to kind of get an idea of what's going on in there. So there's a bit of a gap at the waist to the crotch to give you a very, very wide range of motion. So like, look how far this guy can tilt over. All the way around, and then you can kind of use the belt to help kind of hide some of that. So he does have a wide range of motion there, and then of course rotation. He doesn't have a diaphragm cut or anything like a lot of the 2.0 figures do, but you can see why it would really destroy that sculpt. The legs go out, and they are ratcheted as well, so they move really well, and they hold in position just fine. I'm pretty happy with that. They move solidly, if that's a way to say that. They kick forward all the way. They kick backward a little bit, not too much. They kind of kick his butt right away. And then you've got a thigh cut up there. You've got a single rotating knee, so that's kind of par for the line, nothing we haven't seen before. You've got rotation at the ankles. You've got rocker down there, and then you've also got hinge. Watch out, though. These spikes on these boots are sharp as hell. But otherwise, I mean, he moves really well. He moves pretty much exactly like you expect a Mythic Legions to move. He just happens to be... well, he just happens to be a lot bigger, which is exactly what he is. He's just a larger scale Mythic Legions figure that is pretty much the same formula that we've seen over time, just at a larger scale. Now, of course, this is a Legions figure, so my main draw is, as I say far too often, I think, is the looks. And I mean, the main draw for this entire wave, for I'd say just about everybody, has to be the ogres. And this guy in particular is the one that I was going after. Trying to get these figures, I realized that I did not need to go down the rabbit hole of trying to buy a bunch of them. I wanted to pick the one that I wanted the most, and I went after him, and it happened to be this guy, and I lucked out. And thankfully, the servers held out for me to be able to get a hold of him. And I think this is a really, really cool figure. Of course, there are parts reuse things going on here between the other ogres, the two orc ogres, but this guy's paint job is going to set him apart. But of course, we don't have any paint to talk about right now. So essentially what you've got here is just like a 9-inch size Mythic Legions figure. And I'll do some size comparisons here in a bit to other standard Legions, and then I'll show you what he looks like next to a troll as well. But this guy is, I mean, he's just crammed full of detail. And like I said, as far as this line goes, this is 100% new. You know, Legions as a thing is built upon parts reuse, which is pretty normal anyway from just an action figure perspective. But this guy, he doesn't share parts with anything except the other ogres, so it's a pretty finite group of figures, and I think there's just a lot of cool stuff going on here. So you've got the very humongous, very muscly, and very veiny, and just sinewy body that sits over top of this figure. So the entire chest and arms are covered in sculpt, covered in very, just gruesome warrior style arms, chest, the pecs, the abs, the whole deal. It's a beefy dude. There's just no other way to describe it. You've got this harness piece that is movable and removable. So you can pop it off back here at the back and you can pull it apart. So you could have a bare-chested figure and maybe make yourself a fourth ogre if you really wanted to. Have him be a little bit different than Bolthor here. Maybe remove the armor and have him be more of a grunt type of figure. And then you've got this big belt here with some bones hanging off of it. Pretty nice embellishments for this big insignia here. And what's interesting about this test shot, and I wasn't expecting it, is that he comes with the soft goods as well, which is also gray. So there's soft goods underneath of this kind of belt piece here, which is interesting because my other test shots that had soft goods didn't come with any, which is kind of the norm because of course they're not plastic, so there's nothing to test. But I like the fact that we have it, and I think it kind of fills out the crotch area, especially after figuring out how that kind of works. You've got some pieces down here on the boots, specifically the feet, that are very reminiscent of figures that we already have. Like, I always say that these are like the Keltis style boots just because it's what I think of first, but these are the exact same style of boots. They just happen to be new tooling at a larger scale. You've got some pretty wild shin guards though, with a lot of detail on the front, a lot of jagged spikes and stuff that stick out of the side on the back. Just a really cool detail. It's very, very nicely sculpted, and again, it's one of those things where once it's fully painted, I'm going to be really excited to see what it looks like compared to this test shot, to see exactly how much detail they cram in from a paint perspective, because legions are kind of layered in paint. And then you've got this massive head up here, which I think is just beautiful. I love this head sculpt. I think the helmet is amazing. The horns, of course, are, as is pretty much the norm with legions, you can take them out and you can, not use them, or you can put them on the other side and kind of change them up a little bit just to give them a slightly different look, because everything's kind of modular, so you can give them a little bit of a little pizzazz there and change them up a little bit. But I think the head sculpt is amazing. It's going to look great with a coat of paint on it. That stands true for the entire figure, but the head on this guy with those horns is a huge, huge draw for me personally. Now for accessories, this guy really doesn't seem to come with much, and of course I guess I'll find out once the finished product is here what he fully comes with, because realistically it doesn't seem like he has a great deal. Really all that he comes with is this axe, at least as far as what I got with my test shot. So you can hold it in either hand, and you've got a ton of detail on it. I mean, this again is entirely new sculpt work for the line. A lot of detail all over the handle, tons of little interlocking pieces there, and then you've got a very pitted and worn blade. The top on this guy will come off, so the actual blade is removable, so you've got that. The bottom piece is also removable, so you've got that. And then I also got these pieces with it, so seems like you can extend this guy a little bit, so you can do something kind of like this maybe and make it bigger, and then you've got like a larger axe. But then I've also got this one as well, so there were two of those. I guess you can make it twice as long, which seems a little unnecessary, almost a little obscene, or maybe it's an extra piece. I don't know. It's a test shot, so you never really know what's going to come with it. Either you're going to get some stuff, or maybe you're not, depending on what they actually had after it was done. But even if it's just supposed to be this, it's still a pretty cool and very imposing, massive kind of spear type of axe, halberd, I suppose it would be the better way to describe it, would be more of like a halberd type of weapon, and it's just very cool. I mean, again, it's just as big as the figure. I think for my money, though, it's probably going to stay at like the shorter size, just because, I don't know, it seems to look cooler. I feel like this big guy could do a lot more damage with a shorter blade than a big long one, but again, it's Legion, so you can kind of do whatever the hell you want. And then, like I mentioned for a quick size comparison, here he is with my other two test shots. So we've got King Noglin, one of the goblins, and then we've got Faunus, which is a more standard type of character. He just happens to have a little bit taller head sculpt. So you can see that Bolthor here towers, no pun intended, over both of these figures, specifically the goblin. And he's just got a lot more plastic here. There's a lot more heft, and there's just a lot more plastic going on with this guy. The weight of this figure cannot be understated, because it is a very heavy figure, but it feels very solid. It's not an unsturdy type of figure. It very much feels quite robust and very well put together. So you can just get an idea of how big this guy is. He's not a giant, but he's definitely a much larger type of creature that falls within the realm of this line of toys. But then to put him in perspective, here he is next to one of the trolls, and you can see that, I mean, there is just no comparison here. The troll is still, by and large, the biggest thing that we've gotten from the Horseman. It is a truly humongous piece of plastic, and even though Bolthor is very, very large for even a standard action figure, he kind of pales in comparison to this guy. There's really no competing with one of these trolls. They are massive, but Bolthor still works really, really well in the realm of being a much more posable type of figure while retaining quite a bit of height over the rest of the line. So for a video that wasn't supposed to be a review, I suppose I reviewed this guy, but I just wanted to talk about him because I've been chomping at the bit to finally get my hands on Bolthor, and this is a really, really cool piece. It obviously holds a special place in my Legions collection just because of what it is. I've been really anxious to get a hold of these ogres to begin with, so there's a lot of fun stuff going on here. Modular pieces, a whole mess of new sculpt, great detail, fantastic just look and feel, the weight, the heft, the way the ratchet joints work, the scale to other figures, the fact that he is literally towering over some of these other figures really, really does it for me, and it just works. It's very much an extension of what we already know in this line, just in a different manner. So I'm really, really excited to get the finished figure, to get the finished wave in general, but this is a really nice taste of things to come. I know that everybody that got on board for these is really going to be happy with the way these turned out, because these are pretty phenomenal toys. So yeah, that's it, guys. That is the test shot version of Bolthor the Tower from the Horseman. Let me know what you guys think. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and until next time.